All right, guys, welcome to Beard of Darkness book reviews. Oh my goodness, I have such a wonderful guy with me today. This has been planned for some time. He was actually the first author I got a hold of when I started doing my new review process kind of thing. Man, how are you, Christopher Russell?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me. Like I was telling you in the preview that I grew this beard specifically for this interview, and I could not catch up. So you have the God beard. I bow down.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you liking the beard, but it took 3 years to get to where I'm at, and I grow kind of like slow. So most people who grow for 3 years, it's this nice, long, luscious thing. It wasn't me, but I'm not giving up. It's going to be, well, it's my brand now. So if somebody shaves me while I'm sleeping, we will be forever enemies.
You can be like Samson, immediately lose all your power.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. Oh man, so how was your Thanksgiving? Did you have a good one?
Oh, it was epic. Had a bunch of people over. Did the turkey, the green bean casserole, the mashed potatoes, gravy slathered over everything.
Did you have the crunchy onions on the top of the green beans?
I did have the crunchy onions. The green beans aren't complete without that.
Oh, they are. Yeah, that's just the best, right?
I mean, you can put those crunchy onions in anything. I just have like a bunch of bags of them, and I'll throw them in pasta. I'll throw them in spaghetti. All these different meals. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Soup, for sure. Oh man, we're already getting along so well. Love this. Thanks, guys, for so we've got some people here. Sam Paisley, a fellow indie author. Get to talk with him very soon. Matt Jones, another indie author. Isaac Anderson, another indie author. And E.L. Montague, another author. And they all say hello, Beard Unite, and technically the Beard of Darkness. God Beard is something else. Well, we're not going to get too technical tonight, but I am the Beard of Darkness. And I when I went to take that name, I was so happy to find out that nobody had taken it. Like I don't have like squiggle star 124 after my name. I am the one and only.
Hey Lauren, good to see you.
Oh, there we go.
Lauren's another person that's been following my book since the beginning. Big support.
Oh, that's amazing, man. As an author, how does that feel?
Oh, great. If anybody is reading and enjoying my books, I'm satisfied. But the best part is people coming back and telling you about it, sending you messages. And I just really appreciate Lauren and everybody else who does that.
Lauren, I feel like I read a review from you of his book. I read so many, and I don't usually do that, to be honest with you. I don't usually like read a bunch of reviews. I kind of form my own, and I did. But
he was just a little worried it was going to be crap.
No. In fact, I read it first and then looked at the reviews. So no, it wasn't like that at all. But she says, "Hi, Christopher, it's Lauren. So good to finally see you. You look great, dear friend. Smiling over here in sport. Wow, that's wonderful." Sam Paisley says, "One beard to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them."
There you go. Message the Lord of the Rings. Stay and see if you can use that as your tagline.
Exactly. Oh man, this is already getting off to a wonderful start.
Already getting off topic.
Hey, that's the beautiful thing, right? So we're gonna have one topic here, and that's you and your work, but it's those side conversations that really makes it interesting. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So let us know. We all know this, but for those who don't, tell us the names or the titles of the books that you've published so far, the name of the series, and like the overview, if you will.
All right. So this is my Divinity's Twilight series. There's 2 books out currently. Book 1, Divinity's Twilight Rebirth, and Book 2, Divinity's Twilight Remnant. And this one's a real chonker.
Oh, it is.
Put that on your head, and if you don't want to be tall, you just put it up there. Or your little children, if you don't want them to grow tall, put the book on top of them. And then there's also a little novella that takes place on the same universe called Gravitas. And so what I'm starting here is a little bit of a multiverse similar to Sanderson. So this is called the Constella. And the idea behind this is you have different worlds, different tech levels, different magic systems. We're all familiar with the Cosmere, or most people are familiar with Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. Yep. But Divinity's Twilight is very much a steampunk universe, that they have a magic crystal called Illyrium, and they draw energy out of that and use that to power all their technology. They have tanks, and they have airships, and they have TVs and radios. At the same time, they have anachronistic armaments like early bolt-action rifles, and they have chainmail, lamellar armor. It's this huge hodgepodge of mythical creatures, 7 different races, technology, magic. It is basically everything that I wanted out of a universe. I put it together, and people say it somehow makes sense.
It does. So I love that you covered that real quick. Like the fact that I said in my review earlier that there were times where I felt like I was reading a book that was talking about the world I live in today, as far
Hmm.
as you incorporating the technology into the magic, and like there's resources in which are dwindling down. Illyrium, right?
Yep.
And I ask right because sometimes I forget like certain things. But so you've got this dwindling. Well, there's a big backstory, so it's nothing that we're going to be able to cover over this live. But there's such a deep history, and you find yourself absorbing this technology that's fueled by a resource that is dwindling down. In fact, there's very little of it, and
Hmm.
oh my gosh, it's what you said, a hodgepodge of things that I never knew could fit together in a modern fantasy book. That I don't know if would fit together any other than just a modern fantasy book. It's wonderful. It's refreshing. There's times that I was like, okay, I'm reading a modern, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden I'd be taken back, like way back into the ancient times. But it
Hmm.
was, along the same storyline. Um, what is the subgenre that you would classify your writing in?
So starting from the top and going down, I'd go epic fantasy, military high fantasy, then steampunk fantasy when you get down to the nuts and bolts. And actually, we can get Isaac's question in along with this. Or am I a big research guy with my tech stuff? I'm an aerospace and mechanical engineer by trade.
I'm
So
so
my
glad you touched
yes.
that.
So my day job is I work for a company that retrofits, does like secondary systems for special forces. So like your U.S. Blackhawks, Little Birds, various aircraft that the Army uses. And so coming up from my college, my master's and my PhD, I did a whole bunch of degrees. But anything that you have tech wise is like taking all of that and distilling it down. There's going to be a little bit of thermodynamics, a little bit of physics, but nothing too complex because like some of Sanderson does a little bit of this in Rhythm of War, where I don't know if you've read it, but one of his
Mm-mm.
characters goes off and does a lot of stuff dealing with technology and dealing with the physics of waves and the physics of atoms and particles and stuff. And I try not to go down that deep because the goal is for people to be like, oh, cool, that's engineering stuff. I know what that is, but still enjoy the story.
I nerded out so deep. Yeah, I think you're covering that. You do this on the daily, and it's a kind of a struggle for me. I don't work like that. I don't work in that type of environment. So it's nice when I can kind of nerd out, if you will,
Hmm.
just to be vague. So I like that. You really do a wonderful job. I remember even messaging like I didn't really mean literally what I said. I think it was something along the lines of you leave a lot of, or you don't leave a lot of detail to be imagined. So you're showing, and I love
Hmm.
that. So, for instance, when you learn about the military rankings and the characters, and how there's one that I really loved reading, Mateo. He,
Mateo's everyone's favorite in the first book. Like all
I
the other characters can kind of grate on people's nerves and they get better in book 2 and 3. Mateo is the one that gets you through.
Well, I have to say he may have had a little bit of an advantage off the rip because that's my Spanish name. I'm Matt,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
Mateo is Spanish and is Matt in Spanish. But no, I absolutely loved the fact that he's a somewhat of a coward.
Hmm.
But you see him really not being that. He classifies himself that, but at the same time, it's like these people around him kind of think that too, and
Hmm.
you see him grow as a character, and it's one hell of a character arc. I love it.
Hmm.
Um, so, what gave you this like inspiration to go down the path that you have with these books? What encouraged you to write the books that you have?
So the direct inspiration was a series called Shadows of the App by H. and Tchaikovsky. Have you ever heard of it?
I have. I have not
So
read it.
people have been trying to get Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads to read it, and I think he's stuck somewhere book 2, book 3. I'd have to ask him specifically,
Uh-huh.
but it is one of my all-time favorite series. And what I love that Tchaikovsky does is that he's not focusing necessarily on, I would say, a world where magic is very prevalent he's focusing on a world where magic has been sort of pushed to the side, and that you have these people called the apt that are able to use technology when they're in-app. The people that can use the magic can't. And so he does a very good job of what is a minor change, like the introduction of gunpowder or the introduction of flight, all these different things. How is this going to impact society when these changes are rushed through during the middle of a war? And so you see in the space of, I think that the series might cover 5 to 10 years in this world, that they go from using crossbows and pike formations and things like that to having rapid firing firearms and airships and fighters and things like that. So it is this really cool progression. And my thought with Divinity's Twilight was, what if we take that and have 2 parallel developments? And I think you mentioned this in your review, that you have the development of the magic and the development of the technology side by side, and that there's a push and a pull, a yin and a yang to them directly.
Yes, man, you really and me wanting to be an author, it's such a cool little it's cool to learn. I'm studying books. I'm not just reading them. And it takes me a little longer to get through them because of that, but it's so fun. It's not like me studying I'll tell you, I love it now, but I didn't in the past, was history. I love it now, but studying history in the past was really hard for me. I could care less. And that's one of those things, like as an adult, you kind of find yourself gravitating towards something that's very important. One of the things I loved, and I haven't really tried showing these yet, and with my green screen, I hope they show up because. So, real quick backstory. Me and Christopher talked, and he agreed to do a review copy for a review, and we'll chat. And man, he really just blew it out of the park with what he sent me. He offers this. There it is. All right. So this is will you go ahead and touch on the names?
Okay, so these are some of the airships. There's different classifications in the world. This would be for the Sarkonian Empire. They're chiefly antagonists, especially in book 1, but there's a lot of gray area the further you go into the series. But anyway, so these would be like heavy cruisers or dreadnoughts, their biggest classification of ship. Lots of guns. Yes. And the way that the airships work, and you can actually see they have flat bottoms, is that there's grav pads on the bottom. And that's a little bit of that engineering background, that they essentially beat the air into submission like a helicopter, that they are repulsing the air beneath them to stay aloft.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So one thing that I noticed too about your writing is you had to have some, at least if not a background, a lot of research into military structure as far as strategy. You go a lot into strategy. Would you touch on that a little bit? Did you do research?
I basically grew up with it. So I'm an Army brat. So I grew up. My father did 27 years in the United States Army.
Respect.
He retired. Yes, thank you. We just had Veterans Day, so that was big. Especially at my work. My work is like 33% veterans, so lots of people that we were honoring. But he retired as a colonel. I got to go on some of his deployments, see the airfields, interact with a lot of his NCOs and various people that worked under him. And so I had that direct experience. And then I always loved history. Like the movie that I'm most looking forward to right now is Napoleon by Ridley Scott.
Yes.
I am so excited to get to Napoleon sometime soon.
Oh, Joaquin Phoenix, bro.
Yes, he's going to be amazing. I know it. But speaking of Napoleon, you have the Sharp series, which is another one of Andrew's from Andrew Wizardly Reads favorites. So that follows a character called I forget Sharp's first name, but it follows him from the campaigns in British India all the way to Waterloo. And so you get a lot of that. Like you can even look at, if you hold up the book cover, this is Chris McGrath, who did Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn covers. I said, I want this to look like a Napoleon era or Civil War era type of uniform.
You know, right where I was going.
Yes. So yeah, big history buff, lots of military background, and I have people, both my father and other betas that are related to the Army, that go through and are like, does this make sense? There's places where you're going to have to give a little bit on what's entertaining, because there's a lot of insubordination, especially on the part of the cadets at times.
Yeah.
It wouldn't really fly in a military situation, but you give a little and you have readers suspend disbelief, because that makes better storytelling.
First of all, I want to say I love what your father did and is doing. I love what you're doing and who you represent my uncle, he just passed away actually a month and a half ago. He retired from Langley Air Force Base. He tested
Okay, yeah,
jet
I know.
jet engines. My father was in the Air Force. All of my uncles on my mom and dad's side were in the Air Force, retired. So a lot of respect goes for what you're doing as far as talking about them, representing them, and what your father did. So I wanted to make sure I got that out of the way because that's huge for me. That's why we're
Um,
talking today. We had that
Yes, thank
freedom.
you so much for their service. I was just gonna notice Shad for a second. He was talking about the audiobooks.
Yeah.
Audiobooks, my plan is to have them produced by Adam Gold. If you've ever read the or listened to the Threadlight trilogy by
Oh,
Zach
yes.
Argyle, same narrator. There is a disembodied voice, essentially like a possession that occurred. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything, but
Yeah.
book one, book two, that kind of thing.
Mm.
That I think Adam Gold is going to be fantastic with that grating, gravelly baritone. But that's going to be production probably starting mid next year, something like that.
I didn't know the name
Mhm.
until you told me he did Zach Argyle's. Oh my gosh, man.
Yes.
He does. You couldn't have come up with a better choice, honestly.
Hmm.
He is captivating. There's not very, so I like audiobooks, but there's very few narrators that can get me. Stephen Pacey, the guy who's doing the Wickwire Watch. I just talked to, I forget his name. Wait, no, I'll get it wrong. But then Adam Gold is another
Hmm.
one. I talked to Zach Argyle on the channel and instantly started reading slash he offers his audiobook for free. So I was like, of
Hmm.
course. So yeah, great choice. I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited to do a reread, an immersion read with the audiobooks. And Adam Gold is the narrator. Yes, agreed.
Hmm.
Caden Love in the house.
Hey,
Uh,
Caden. Caden and I met at Fan Expo Salt Lake a couple months ago.
you know how many
Great
people I
guy.
talk to and they're like, "Oh, I just met Caden. This guy
Uh,
is like traveling to every con, guys. He is a con going man. He
I can
hails the
already tell
con."
you this. I'm going to read Caden's book when it comes out, but I've heard his first line. It is a fantastic hook. I
Ooh.
think that Caden's going places.
I look, and I love that you said that, man.
Mhm.
I haven't read that line, and Caden, I'm a little jealous because you know me. He's been a fan of my channel since I started it, and he's been such a great as you know, because you've met him and talked to him. He is one of the up and comers in this community, and he does a fantastic job marketing his product.
Mhm.
Talking with other authors, he's willing to learn. He's teachable. I think you're doing all the right things, Caden. Bravo, brother. Michael, yes, happy Black Friday. For those of you who like to shop till you drop, me, I forgot that it was Black Friday and went to Walmart today for some formula for the baby and yeah,
And
I
came home with
sat,
a TV.
I didn't because if I would have went in, I would have probably gotten something along those lines. Probably, I don't have a Nintendo Switch, but I
Mhm.
would love one. I probably would have came home with one today
If
if
you
I went
get
in.
one and you already know you love fantasy books, the
Uh,
number one game you need to do if you like strategy,
oh yeah.
Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Say the name again.
Fire Emblem Three Houses. It has
Ooh.
great storytelling. Follows three different nations, a lot like my books in conflict. So my book
Okay.
came out before Fire Emblem Three Houses, but yeah, same general basic premise.
So I think my kids are finally asleep, so I can say this. We're getting two of them for Christmas, so I'm gonna steal it every now and then. I'm gonna play
Uh-huh.
that for sure. Um, Excuse me. So, oh my gosh. Yes, thank you for popping in, Caden. Man, you're doing the thing, and I'm excited for you. Can't wait to read your book. So we've heard some inspiration, very deep-seated inspiration, and very, I think, vital. And you can see it. I can see it. I can read it. I can hear it all through your novel. I love it. Um, you involve a lot of technology and magic. What sparked your interest in those two together? Was there something that kind of sparked those two coming together?
It was probably subconscious. So, and I now realize it consciously, but my favorite game series of all time is Final Fantasy. And so Final Fantasy is the king of originally they started with medieval settings back in the days of one, two, three.
Yeah.
But when they got to six, they do this sudden hard right into left field. And they start doing steampunk in sort of a futuristic setting. And they have the mech walkers and they have the giant pipe cities and everything. And that's where Final Fantasy starts. 6, 7, 8. They all go a merge of magic and futuristic tech. How can we blend these together?
Mm.
And where I got my start with Final Fantasy was I want to say it was 2009. I was playing football. It was my senior year of high school, and it was summer, and I tore my MCL on a
Oh
freeze drill.
gosh.
I was the center. The nose guard came across, hit the guy next to me, and knocked him into my leg. I tear my MCL. I'm out for 4 weeks, have to wear braces when I come back. But that 4 weeks gave me the time to dive into the greatest hits version of Final Fantasy 12. That's a controversial title. A lot of people say that it was the plot might have been a little nonsensical, that the main characters didn't really serve the purposes of the plot, but I absolutely loved it because the great thing about 12 was it didn't bar your progress to spread out and experience the world with all these airships and floating islands and tombs beneath the sand and these mountaintop temples and all this great stuff. And
Mm.
I think that might have been the seed of Divinity's Twilight way back then, and the seed of like the entire idea of blending magic and technology. Because I think their airships ran off of it was either ether or something like that, something similar to Illyrium.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So first off, yeah, I think you're the first author I've talked, and I've talked to a lot of people, and not a lot of people tell me they played football. Man, that was my life until I graduated high school, dude. I was a offensive defensive tackle.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. What's your height?
you were in the trenches with me. 6'3".
Oh yeah, dude.
I was taller than the quarterback. The quarterback had to throw over me.
So I'm 6'5", six
Uh,
four on a bad day. So yeah, I was we're similar. That's cool, man. Yeah. Look, we got overlooked. So it's like quarterback, the halfback, the wide receivers, everybody else,
mhm.
you know. And then it's like, oh yeah, but see, those guys wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for me,
Yep.
right? Oh
Hey,
man, that's cool.
I snapped the ball. I had to start the play.
I remember our center messing up so many times one practice that he had like 1,000 snaps after practice.
Oh, was he doing
Like
shotgun? He was just bouncing them off
well,
the
yeah,
ground.
both shotgun, direct snap. Like he kept fumbling the ball, and I
Mhm.
remember a distinct practice where he was his arm was dead. He's like, I am never dropping that ball again.
Uh,
So lots of
well,
respect to you
the
guys.
most nerve-wracking thing for me, I did all the snapping for my team, so the PAT and the long snapping. It was the most nerve-wracking was like the final game of the season. They were up by 1 touchdown, and we have to punt. And just
Mm,
getting in, I was snapping the ball, long snapping into the end zone, just making sure that's perfect.
yeah, and
And
getting that
it was,
spin.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Getting that spin on the ball, make sure it lands in his hands, chest, man. So yeah, there's lots that goes into football, guys. You watch on TV that you don't really know unless you played. It's fun. I'm glad that you talked about that. I miss those days. You miss Friday Night Lights like
I
I
do
do.
miss Friday Night Lights.
Ah, yeah.
Somebody actually they read book 2, and I think it was Tennessee Reader. Do you know him? On
I have heard of his channel. Yes.
Okay, but anyway, he read book 2, loved it, and he compared it. He said the characters and the way their relationships and interactions. It's a lot like Friday Night Lights, the TV show. I was like, okay, I better go watch this. And it's about
Oh,
5% football and 95% like drama and high school and stuff. But it's still a
yeah.
really good show.
It
Uh,
is. It is,
uh,
and I think it's pretty realistic. And the movie Friday Night Lights with who was it? Billy Bob Thornton. Oh, so
mhm.
good. Anywho, so how has doing what you do for a living brought anything? Has it brought a lot to your writing career as well?
Um, I'd say they're similar. They definitely occupy the same part of my brain. There's a lot of creativity that goes into making a design or qualifying it, doing like all the math to make sure it's going to pass the government standards and everything. Um, I definitely am worn out when I get home during the week, and I don't have a lot of brain power left to do anything more than maybe social media and stuff. So I
Mhm.
do all my writing pretty much on the weekends.
Okay.
But I would say that the way that you construct and approach a problem would be the same. When you come to a design, who is this for? What reaction do I want to get? What safety standards or things do I need to pass? And then you look at writing and you look at the diagnosing a scene, you go, who is this for? What reactions do I want to get out of a reader? What do I need them to learn or what needs to pass from this scene into the next to keep them going? So you can hit a lot of the same points. And maybe this is just me making the analogy as an author. I do not want to let an analogy pass by me without taking a stab at it.
Sure.
But there's definitely at least a little similarities, even if I'm stretching the metaphor.
Oh, no. I think that's great. You're a process guy.
Mhm.
You like to analyze the beginning, middle, and end, how you start, how it's gonna end, the outcome, this and that. I love
Well,
that, man.
funnily enough, though, so this is typically where you go into what kind of writer are you? I was an unforgivable pantser when I started book one. That I basically did. I just started writing. I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Well, this will lead to this." And well, I'm glad that I had the instinct to put that in back there because I kind of needed it up here. But
Mhm.
when I hit book two, I started doing an outline, started getting more of a skeleton now. I basically discovery write my characters and like the internals of a scene, and I plot the overarching plot now, and what needs to happen in which section of the book, and maybe one or two big things in each chapter that I need to hit. So
So,
I'm somewhere in between now.
no, that makes sense. That kind of covers about half of what I was about to ask you, your writing process. So you do weekends, and you've become more of an outliner and kind of like pants in the middle, um, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I start with my pants off. I put the pants on, then I take them off again. No, but it would be like a planter. And there's a lot of cool stuff. I would say that I'm very blessed, and this is me looking. I'm trying to turn my backlight on now so that
Oh
people
no,
can see me.
it happens.
But I'd say that I'm very blessed with, I guess, some of the instincts and some of the because like you said, you are absorbing a lot by your reading and what you're watching on people's channels and the people you're talking to,
Mm,
and it gets into your subconscious before you know it, and you just start doing things on instinct that you might not have thought about yet. And then
mm.
you might watch something like Brandon Sanderson's lectures, or
Yeah.
talk to somebody that's really really smart and's been doing this forever, like Andy Peliquin, and then you start to categorize, well, I was doing that without realizing it, and a whole bunch of different stuff. And like I said, I really just can't get
No,
my
do
head.
that and I'll take over. So I hear that, and I guess like when you sit down to write on the weekends, do you have a certain amount of words that you're after, or are you kind of just you're a working man, so is that change for you over the time, like, or is it a set schedule?
Well, my goal is to get it whenever I sit down to write. On days off, it's typically like I'll wake up, I'll do some chores, get the dogs out, etc. Eat, maybe read or watch something real quick for inspiration. Then I'll start like 12 to 1, and then I'll write for 5 or 6 hours. And my goal is to knock out a chapter during that time.
Okay.
To during the week, I will be gathering notes, and I will be planning what needs to go into the 2 or 3 chapters that I'm going to get done that weekend. And I will make notes. And if I have something that's really cool, like something I want a character to say, or a bit of narration that just hits me in the moment, I'll record that in the notes too, and it'll be transplanted directly into the chapter. But then I'll sit down. I have already gamed it out in my head over and over again throughout the week, and it pretty easily flows from there. And there'll be hiccups. There will be a character doesn't do what I want him to do, because
Mhm.
everybody tells you that about their characters, that they have minds of their own, and then the scene
Yeah.
will take a different direction than it was originally intended. But my goal is to start and finish that entire scene so that I don't lose anything, so that I don't get cut off in the midpoint and have to pick up. Because what I find when I start picking up writing again is that I'm very much in a detail oriented mode then, which serves you well at the start of a chapter, but as the pacing progresses through a chapter, it doesn't. That you typically want pacing to accelerate as you hit dialogue, as you hit action, or whatever's going on. And so I find that doing one chapter during that writing session works best for me.
That makes perfect sense. And also, real quick, Sam Paisley touched on something that's really cool going on right now. Tons of indie authors are they're offering huge discounts on books today for Black Friday if you're looking to add to your TBRs. I mean, come on, guys, we all are looking to add to them. Whether
Absolutely.
they're a mile long or not is irrelevant. Um,
Oh, I figured out what happened.
there you go. There we go. Awesome. I'd say I've had 3 interviews where so I use my camera as my webcam, and it has completely died. My phone's dead, and you can still hear me. So the talk goes on, but it takes like 10 minutes to get that bad boy, start charging again. And man, that's the fun and genuinity, if that's a word. I don't know if that's a word.
We'll make it a word.
We'll make it a word.
As I heard from a co-author friend of mine that was writing in their work in progress, they wrote this really clever line that if it has a definition and if it means something, it's a word.
I mean, that's kind of how words come to fruition.
Yes.
So, yeah, I love that. So you're goal oriented. When you sit down, you have a stopping point in mind. Now, one of the coolest things, and Andy Peliquin, I'm so glad you brought him up. He's such a cool guy. One of those guys, like you said, who's been doing it for a while. So if I have a question as far as because he reviews books and writes books, I don't know how he does it so fast, because he's faster than me on just the reviewing part, and he's writing.
He's insane. I was having a conversation with him about his pace, that I am probably one of the slowest authors I know, and that might have to do with having a full-time job. And
It does.
So like I'll get faster as the weekend goes on, but so my average is maybe 600 to 700 words an hour. Andy does something insane, like I think it was 60, 80 words a minute. And so if you multiply that out, it's like 4,000 to 5,000 words an hour.
Well, now when he talked to me, he's like, I do like 95 words a minute. And I'm like, that's incredible. And I totally believe it. He's been doing this, guys, for a long time. I don't know how many books he has out, but
he's 50 plus. There was some posts that he made. Yeah.
So crazy. I respect the hell out of him. If I have a question as far as like reviewing or writing goes, like he's my number one dude to reach out to. He's an OG, if you will. Let's see here. I write so many notes down sometimes.
Oh yeah, but I can pick up with that, because where I was going with that time about Andy and Brandon and all these different people is that you realize from those early days, the things that you were doing naturally, the things that you were doing by instinct, have a name to them, a reasoning to them. And that's where you get into the state of being an author that we call the how the sausage is made period, where you start dissecting books and you start seeing this is what the author intended. He was building up these themes. He was making these promises early in the book to have this payoff at the end. And so that's where the structure starts to come from. That because I had very good instincts, I think, when I was starting, there are things in book 1 that I had not attached purpose and meaning to that is paying off for me now as I write book 3, because I'm able to do really cool things with them that I had never intended.
That's kind of touching on a question, because before I even reached out to you, like one of the things that I heard and actually heard you say through a couple of interviews was the difference between your writing in book 1 and your writing in book 2 varies vastly. Would you touch on that a little bit?
So book 2, I'd say, is about 5 times better than book 1. And I'm not exaggerating for everyone in the audience. That's me picking favorites between my children. Book 1, I started in 2012 while I was at college. I got serious about it in 2016 when I was in grad school. So that's book 2 that you have right there. Book 2, Remnant. Book 1 being Rebirth. Got serious about it in 2016. I had written everything that would become book 1 by 2018. I had not, the only fantasy series I had read by the time that I found a publisher for book 1, which was Morgan James Publishing, and I'm now self-pubbed since then. I can talk more about that later, but for anybody that's worried that they're getting traditionally published books, I'm self-published now. But anyway, by that point, I had not only read Shadows of the Apt, I had read a ton of Star Wars, like the old canon Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that might also be where a lot of the tech-based stuff that I write, it comes from, because Star Wars is a space epic fantasy. It's not a sci-fi. But anyway, so
I had never heard that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes, because you have a bunch of guys running around with magic in their blood, waving swords, laser swords, and all the technology is very light. It's like, we have a hyperdrive. Why does the hyperdrive work? Nobody knows. So hard sci-fi is they spend 5 chapters telling you why that hyperdrive works before there's ever a battle. Star Wars is like, thing turns on, we go to light speed, shoot lasers.
I'm so glad you touched on that. So continue, my bad.
Okay, but anyway. Where I was going with that was I had not read Brandon Sanderson. I had not read a lot of the indie stuff I have now. I had not read Jay Kristoff, like his
Ooh.
Nevernight Chronicles and Empire the Vampire, which if there is any guy that I adore their prose and I want to be more like, it's Jay Kristoff.
Oh
And I think I
yeah.
manage more of that going into book 2 and book 3.
I'm so
That a lot of
excited.
people think that the prose vastly improves along with everything else. And so I met a ton of people that were already working in the indie scene. I wrote books with other people. I watched Brandon Sanderson's lectures. I had
Mm.
this whole inundation of things before I started book 2 in 2021. And technically, I had continued book 2 from 2018 to 2021, but I threw all of it out and rewrote the entire thing from scratch.
That takes
Starting from
cojones, people.
Yes. So 95% of what was originally in book 2 disappeared, and it's just the skeleton that had
Mm.
an entirely new flesh and tissue and everything put on it.
That's yeah. So there's for people who haven't written, like it takes so much time to do what he threw out. Uh, it's really cool to hear because you truly have to have a goal in mind and goal oriented and have this vision to be able to say this is not what I wanted. Let's
Mhm,
start over. That's courageous, brave, and ballsy.
mhm.
Congrats, man. Bravo.
Thank
Lauren,
you.
yeah, Lauren says, I have 4 copies of Divinity's Twilight Rebirth, 3 copies of Divinity's Twilight Remnant, and 3 copies of Gravitas to support Christopher. I'm proud of it always, and I'll buy more.
Thank you so much,
Dude,
Lauren.
talk about a #1 fan. That is incredible.
And
And
I most of them are signed probably. I think she got some of them directly from me.
oh, that's amazing. And I'll tell you, you have, I hope you know this. I feel like people know this, but they probably don't. But I want to share that. If you send me a signed copy of a book, which you very, very much did, um, both of the books, you have a permanent spot on my forever bookshelf, and I'll never forget you.
Aw. Well, I
So,
mean, I think that I've kind of jawed your ear out off like a fire hose, so I don't think you're going to
no,
forget me anyway.
well, there's a reason for that, and that's because I initiate those conversations. So I love it, man. She also says, I think Christopher's book are emotionally genuine and such beautiful stories. They are. Look, guys, they're deep. If you are looking to gain a relationship with characters, I think that Chris is a guy to go to. So much heart he puts into them. I think you're very much in tune with your author, Lauren. And Isaac says sometimes throwing it out is faster than fixing it. Sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so I love Sarkon. Sarkon.
Sarkon, yep. There's no
He,
pronunciation guide yet.
yeah, no, but there, so let's show this. There is a guide in the back. There's things that he has created in these books, guys. That it just takes time. It takes dedication to do. Let me find it real quick. Uh, talk about
Yep,
your dogs
there's an
for a second.
appendix. Oh yeah, I have 6 Shelties. So
Oh my God,
yes, I have 6
6.
Shelties. 5 of them are related. 3 of them are named after book characters. You have Valen, Mateo, and Mira. Valen and Mateo and Mira had puppies, and we kept 2 of them. So that is how you end up with 6 Shelties.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So it starts off with ABH, and that's an acronym, guys, for after the Battle of Harmuth. So
Mhm.
when each chapter starts, you kind of get a relation as far as
Yes. Mhm.
the timeline goes, and that's
There is
really
an
important.
absolute timeline in these books. I got
Vast.
that from. So, have you ever heard of the Destroyer Men series
I have
by
not.
Jay Anderson? I want to say Taylor
Jake
Anderson.
Taylor
And
Anderson.
yeah,
No.
so it is a fantasy sci-fi. Follows a group of destroyer men on a World War One destroyer that is in World War Two, fleeing from the Japanese in the Pacific theater. And he gets caught up in a storm, transported to an alternate Earth where different species have evolved to be the apex predators instead of humans. And
So
these
kind of
two
like Adrian Tchaikovsky's Children of Time.
Yes. And so
Okay.
these 2 groups are in conflict, and the Destroyermen come into this and they start applying their modern, or well, modern then, their 1940s knowledge to helping one of the groups in this world. And the way that he does, he has an absolute timeline that's like a ship's log. and you get the date, you get the location, and you get the year. And so I thought that was really cool. And since I was doing a military fantasy, I said, why don't we make this harder and ground the reader in a time and a date? So I'm in book 3 now, and between book 1 and book 3, about 4 months have passed in this big war, give or take. And so you will know exactly where you are on that timeline, or if you've jumped back to a flashback, because the year counter will change.
So one of the coolest things, and I remember you talking to me about it, and I haven't read the updated prologue because I loved the original so much. Plain and simple. That's it. I haven't read the new prologue. I loved the old one. It's like 44 pages long.
It's a novella tacked onto the front. That's kind of what I was going for.
And it does. So, but it has to be like it has to be, guys. It's action packed. And you learn some history that you can't like continue in the book at all unless you know what's going on. And you learn this relationship between 3 brothers, and oh my gosh, I loved I got through that chapter, if you will, the quickest. And it's the longest, like by far.
It's like people liken it to the Battle of Helm's Deep or the end of another fantasy epic at the beginning.
I don't remember what you called it, but like, so after this big prologue, you have like people who are watching a battle. So it's like, okay, these are old times. This is kind of ancient. This is, you're still kind of gaining this image in your head of what this book is trying to give you. And it's like a projector. I don't remember what you called it.
A recorb.
Yeah,
so an orb that records. So I do that a lot. I do there's a name for it. I'm gonna call it a kinning, like from Beowulf, but I'm pretty sure a portmanteau. There we go. It's the combination of 2 words. So a recorb is an orb that floats and records things and then can play them back.
And it's like this there's room full of guys that are really important, and they're bitching at each other, and like you know, the testosterone's really high, and I'm right. No, I'm right. And this opinion's better than your opinion. And it's, but the coolest thing is not only that, like the opinions and what you're gaining. And then you kind of like this guy, I don't remember his name, but he goes back to his home, I guess you will. And he like settles down to read. It's very homey. I loved that scene, but, no, I love that. For some reason,
we all have a Metellus in us. That's the character's name, because that's me sitting down in a comfy chair to read.
Yes, thank you for telling me his name. That brings back such a good memory. Because you know, through these books, guys, when you really commit yourself, you gain experience and you gain a time that you'll never forget. Like, I just loved the impact that your prologue gave me, and I don't know the history of when you rewrote that, and I haven't read the new one, but I loved your original one, man. I wouldn't have. I probably won't read that just because I loved it so much. So
well, I will tell everybody in your audience, you can read both on my website. There, one is going to be in the blog. That's the new one. The other one is going to be available in like the preview section. So anybody that wants to read Divinity's Twilight, you can start with either prologue, the long or the short, on my website.
So it says, I'm looking at your website right now, and on Divinity Twilight it says Ozma Fantasy, OZMA. What does that stand for?
So I have no idea what the Ozma award stands for. It is by the CBAs, the Chanticleer International Book Association, and so that was an award that Book 1 won in. I want to say it was either 2020 or 2021.
Yeah,
so it was their best fantasy novel of that year.
Grand prize.
Yes, which has also been won by if you've ever heard of Robert Zangari, Dan Zangari, a Princess Errand. They won it the year before I did. And
that's
then
incredible.
I'm trying to think who won it the year after. It might be what's his name? Hand of Prophecy, Game of War. I'm trying to remember.
That's a very
it'll come to me. But
yeah. Shout it out when it comes to you. Soul Free Wolf, man. He's another guy who is always here watching when I go live. I really appreciate you, Soul Free Wolf. He just sent me a little. He's a writer, and he watches this channel for the same reason that I produce this channel, and that is to gain knowledge. and he sent me a little bit of a snippet into his writing, and I think you've got something special, man. I'm super happy for you. It was very refreshing. I loved it, and I just want to let you know that, man.
That's awesome. I'm glad people like the two of you can connect through this.
Yeah, man, it's such a I had no idea where I was going with this channel when I first started, and I have a clear picture now. And it's talking to people like you and helping people like him see what I'm doing and gain the same experience that I'm gaining.
Thanks for coming out, Sulfrey.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. So who are a few authors that you think or know have a hand in the way that you write?
So book one, the only one I could look to was Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now the primary ones that I'm going to cite for you are going to be Brandon Sanderson, Jay Kristoff. I'm trying to think of who else. I'll throw out an indie one, Allegra Pescatore, who is my co-author. We've worked on a number of like satirical fantasy and epic fantasy. We have a short together called The Grandparent Trap that you can get for free on Amazon. It's the story of 5 Floridians in a nursing home in the very real town of Williston, except for in that universe, 30 years ago, a magic portal opened up and creatures came from another world to ours and effectively took over the government. So you have literal gremlins running the IRS in this world. So lots of funny thing like that. And then we've got this Swedish dragon villain that flies into this little Floridian town to take over the bank to hide his hoard of gold. And these retirees have to save the bank and save the town because their pensions are stored there. They didn't believe in going digital. They kept their pensions in gold.
So, I love that. I love that premise. That's so cool. I can't wait to read that. Same square. That's such a nice comment. I just want to say that you guys are very awesome. Wow.
Well, thank you.
Both of us. Wow, that's a wonderful comment. Thank you so much. So I always like to kind of touch on this question because I write down the answer and then buy the book. What is a novel, or maybe 2 novels, whichever you'd like to say, that are ones in which you would like to read again for the first time?
Read again for the first time. We already talked Empire of the Vampires 1 by Jay Kristoff. Very influential. Like I said, the way that he weaves figurative language together is like
Cuss
divine
words
nectar.
are so creative.
Yes, he literally has like maybe half a page that is just the F word, and there's different inflection and tone to every single one, and it makes perfect sense.
It does. It's great.
Let's see what else. And then I'd have to go to sort of the opposite extreme and say maybe like Oathbringer or Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, because Jay Kristoff has amazing plots and characters, and also, of course, the language, his prose. But Sanderson has the opposite, where it is, how do you weave tons of tiny little, almost insignificant foreshadowing details together to pile into an avalanche that just sweeps across you and takes you out? Yes.
The old so he's one author that I haven't dipped into a whole lot. I've read Elantris and it was good. But I'm saving that for when I don't have so many, because I represent a lot of indie authors and I love that.
You'll never run out of indies though.
No,
we are legion.
You're right. So the indie I'm not reading. So I read an indie book and then I read a trad book at the same time. And the one I'm reading right now is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence.
Okay, Mark Lawrence. I still need to get to that. It's on my list.
Man, I've read his previous, some of his Prince of Thorns, and he is just, if you love dark fantasy, so good.
I thought that was going to be a little more epic, so it still leans dark. The Book That Wouldn't Burn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an epic fantasy. Don't get me wrong, but it is very dark, very much so dark. I would even say like grimdark. Parts of it, that's a subjective thing. So
yeah, it's funny. I've had probably 3 out of the last 4 or 5 bookstagrammers or booktubers or people that have reviewed my book that are on the indie scene. They've all mentioned the horror elements in my books, and that
you do have some.
Yes, and I had it becomes more pronounced with each book, and I hadn't really thought, because I hate horror. And the funny thing is that when I watch horror movies and stuff, that I just can't deal with it. Like I'll start seeing stuff in the shadows.
But I mean, it's subtle.
So
I'm not gonna spoil anything, but like how Sarkon starts to edge back into the modern world is somewhat of a horror element.
Mm-hmm.
And where they find him is, pretty dark. But yeah, I think that's, I don't know. I think those may be the points that they're talking about, but I wouldn't say yours is a horror by any means. It's definitely an epic.
Yeah, it
It's not
starts to shift more that, well, there's definitely an epic fantasy, but the horror elements increase, but from book to book.
okay. So I haven't read book 2, and I'm
Hmm.
so excited because I loved book 1. Like,
Hmm.
so you and a bunch of other people telling me that book 2 is just like you said, 5 times better. It's like, oh, okay. It almost went into. I tried to be as critical as I could in a review,
Hmm.
knowing this, and I think I did okay.
Oh, you did
Um,
great.
Thank you so much. That means a lot because look,
I bleed. I bleed. No, no, he said it was great, guys.
yeah. So it is. It's. I think that my lack of confidence doesn't show here or in my video reviews,
Mhm.
the lack thereof lately, but my written reviews, I'm like, I just don't know if I'm coming across the way that I hope I am. And I've asked some people for some confidence boosters, and I've gotten some positive feedback. So, and that's you too. So, thank you so
Mhm.
much for letting me know. I hope to be doing well.
And this is something, so for myself and all the other indie authors watching right now, there is a ton of work that goes into crafting reviews. Like,
Mm,
I create characters and storylines and plots and foreshadowing, and it takes work. It takes outlining, but I find that that flows very naturally. Reviews are a completely different beast. I have to work so much harder on crafting a review, something that I think is quotable when somebody asks me to read their book and quote it. It is so much harder for me than just crafting my own stories. So
take a
I give
500
praise.
page book and then
Yes,
take 500 words and
yes.
try to
Mhm.
cram it into there and highlighting what you loved and points that you didn't necessarily like as well.
So I
Um,
have the utmost respect for you and everybody else that churns these books, these reviews out, and puts them on websites like Fanfiatic, Epic, all the different big ones, all the ones that are involved in SPFBO.
Grimdark Magazine.
Yes.
Thank you, man. That's so cool. AJ Calvin is one that I reached out to. She's such a good reviewer. Esme Rosalind.
Yes.
Esme.
Mhm.
She is so. Oh, she is what I aim to be as a written reviewer. She is just so good. So if you can, if you will, would you touch on the title of book 3 and how many installments you plan on having in this series?
All right. So crack my knuckles, get down to this. Book 3 is Divinity's Twilight Revelations. When I set out to write this series, I did not intend to have every book begin with RE. It was Divinity's Twilight Rebirth. I was like, okay, this
I
one
didn't
word
even
title
notice.
thing is working. Then I did Divinity's Twilight Remnant. I was like, yeah, there's something to this RE stuff. Let's see if we can plot it out. And then I did Revelations, and it is going to work all the way to book 6 or 7, which is
Oh,
what I planned for the series. And
oh,
so,
I gotta build you a bookshelf.
yes, you got to build me a bookshelf. Each one. So book 2 is 255K. It's a chonker.
It
Book
is. It's
3,
chunker.
I am about 140K into it right now. I think that that might be around the halfway point. So you're looking at 250 to 300K for that one.
Wow.
Chris McGrath is done with the cover. I just got the first proofs in on that. It looks amazing. Some people on the scene, like that have looked at it, like Patrick Leo, said
Mm.
it is his favorite of the covers so far. So
Ooh.
yes.
I will be shouting out about it when I can receive that. So one of the coolest drawings you sent me, if you want to touch on the character a little bit, man, that is so. There's a broken horn, guys.
Uh-huh.
He's got ruins on him. He's just got carvings. He's just nasty. I love it.
So that is Bahamas. Bahamas, you look at him, you think villain. Bahamas is actually kind of a heroic figure. He is the head of the safe haven house, so to speak. It's like a gang in Sewer Town, which is where the main character Valen hails from. And he's kind of like, if you've ever watched what is it, Oliver Twist. He's kind of
Mm.
like Fagin. and he runs a thieving crew of mostly younger kids and trains them to pick pockets and to bring riches back to him, and then he passes it up to the chain to his bosses. But he is from a race of people known as the Vladisvar. There are 7 different races in Divinity's Twilight. There are Terrans, which are the basic humans. There's the Vladisvar, and then there's 5 others, which we can get into later if we have more time. But their thing is that, unlike the other races of Lazaria, they believe in cosmic balance, so to speak. That every deed that you perform that's evil has to be balanced out by one that is good. And so there are a lot of them are
world. Like a Newton.
Yes, like a Newton.
Isaac Newton.
And so their thing, a lot of them are mercenaries. A lot of them try to take careers that are very much in the middle, that if they stray to one side, they can easily balance it out with going to the other side. And they also graft plates and tattoo and scar their bodies to tell their life story. So everything that he's put on there, the claw and everything, the tattoos, they're about important events in his life.
So there's a couple I'm going to get to. Bards and Books. I always like when you pop in, man. I love your channel. I watched Dungeon Crawler Carl's live stream that you did. I don't know if it was live, but you did like an interview with a guy that you're friends with. It was wonderful, and I agreed with everything you said because that is a great audio book. It's a great book, period. Lit RPG is something I'm just diving into. And then, of course, we've got the man. I'm trying to find this book on my shelf over here.
Trials of Ashmount.
Yes, Trials of Ashmount.
And Buzzard's Bowl. I love that name. Love the alliteration.
Thank you for popping in here, man. John Palladino in the flesh, guys. And if you know anything, if you've been watching my channel, I just boast about that series so far, and it's just so good and dark and yummy. I love it. And Brian from Brian Bell from Belltube, who is he's a new booktuber, and he's doing everything right that I wish I could have done when I started. Beard, when you post this video, will you add the links to these books? I will buy them. Yes, of course I will. I think I have a couple already. I'll have to double check, but afterwards I will post the links.
Thanks so much, Belltube. Appreciate it. Glad you're enjoying the interview.
He's a solid dude, man. And if you guys haven't popped into his channel, subscribe, man. He's doing the damn thing right. He's doing it good. He brings something different to the table. I love what he's doing. John says Christopher Russel is such a cool dude on social media, always supporting he is a very community guy.
It doesn't take much effort to do a repost. If you see somebody having a bad day, if you see somebody having a great day, just leave a comment, repost, a like. It takes so little time to make somebody's day, to just encourage all the people that are trying their best in this community.
Yeah, because I love that you said that. That is wonderful. I agree 100%. And we're all individuals who are self-critical, and we're always wondering if we're doing things right or if anybody likes it. So that self-reassurance goes a long way. Whether it's a repost or a comment, it's wonderful. Knoxwich Book Life. Sorry, that's a
really cool name.
It is. She's always here too. Thank you for popping in. She is always here. I really appreciate you. She knows this. She's in my Discord. So what is next for you?
Next for me, well, the other half of Divinity's Twilight Revelations. So I've got my my alpha reader team on that right now. They're reading chapter by chapter. They say it's the best book yet. They said that these are all people that loved book 2, that thought that was amazing, and they say this one's even better. And it is going to have the moment that I thought of when I first started writing this book. This series. So like little me back in 2012, when he was just imagining what Divinity's Twilight was going to be, this was the very first scene that came to mind. And I will tell you, it involves Sarkon. Sarkon, the villain, it was the first thing that existed in Divinity's Twilight. The protagonist, I had to create people to oppose him, essentially, because he was the idea that started it all. But anyway, so that's going to be great. I have 3 or 4 more books to write in this series. I'm probably going to mostly hard charge at this because of my day job, and I want to stay focused and keep the characters fresh in my mind as I keep working. But after this, like I said, I have a universe called the Constella. I have written probably about 10 chapters in an Asian fantasy, post-apocalyptic Asian fantasy
Ooh,
that takes place on
yes.
another world, and that world uses thermodynamic magic. So if you imagine like
Ooh.
the laws of thermodynamic, take those and distill them into a magic system, and imagine using that to maneuver around like Asian pipe structures and like attaching yourself to different points and swinging yourself around while having padding to prevent like wires from cutting into you. Cool stuff like that. There is another world that I was working on with Allegra Pescatore that involves bone magic. We were calling it Age of Bone. And the idea there is God's dead, like in a lot of fantasy worlds. But unlike with most fantasy worlds, he didn't dissipate, and everybody took his bones, split them up, and they've been passing them down through a bunch of very feudal style families. And these bones, both there's the original bones that had magic, and then you can wear the bones of your elders. Like you can put on a bracelet of your grandfather's fingers and say he was an amazing
Oh,
sculptor. You're going to become a better sculptor because you have his fingers on your person.
that's
Yes.
amazing,
So
dude.
that is our we're making it basically as grimdark as we can. So that's something to look forward to in
Ooh.
the future too.
Now you're hitting home where my true love is. I love it. That's number 2, epic fantasy. But
Mhm.
I love a dark book. Like I read the least amount of grimdark, and John knows this. But when I when I do read a dark book, it just if I read only grimdark, I'd be a very depressed guy. Um, so I go between like epic fantasy and grimdark. And
Mhm.
the last grimdark book that I read completely was his. Trials of Ashmount, which I highly suggest everybody read.
Mhm.
Very good, very good. And I'm very much looking. I was just looking at the hardcover because I want his hardcovers. Um, yeah, Michael was talking about how he got a free book earlier. Nice, Michael. Free books are always great. They are. And I think it's really cool when authors take the time to get their books out there in a way like that because it's they love to write, but it's also a way of living as well. So when they offer a book for free, look, guys, we need to respect that and take that into account as something that they're putting a lot of time and effort into. Lauren says, in college, I had wrote a short story set in a steampunk world set in the roaring 1920s with blood magic used from liquor. Ooh, that sounds cool.
I like
Um,
that moonshine.
yeah, because look, that blood alcohol level can get up with some moonshine. And yes, I live on the cusp of Appalachia in Ohio. I know about some moonshine, people.
And maybe they pumped the moonshine right out of their veins and straight into the Tommy guns.
Hell yeah. That's amazing. So I'm writing right now, and I'm really excited. I had a. Do you ever fall asleep at night and like have this idea come to you that you just cannot forget, so you have to get
I
up and
yes,
write it
I
down?
dread that happening. So I keep all my notes on my phone.
Hmm.
There are thousands upon thousands of them. I use a program called Evernote, and I sync it up to the cloud so that it can transfer from phone to phone.
Hmm.
But I actually do earplugs and white noise and a whole bunch of stuff, just so that I can fall asleep and the ideas don't keep me up. That I have like an idea cutoff, like 15 minutes before bed,
Okay.
and just so that I can fall asleep and be awake for work the next day.
No, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. So I kind of wanted to throw my ideas out there,
Okay,
and I won't do this with every video. In fact, this is the only one I think I've done it ever.
I'm ready.
But
I'm
this came to
excited.
me last night, and I want to hear your opinion, Chris. Um, so I had a vague idea of what I wanted to write about, but last night I'm sitting in my bed and I want to write like a dark fantasy, not necessarily grim dark. If it flows that way, sure. Um, but when you look into the eyes of those who have been killed by this dark magic, when you
Mhm.
look into that gaze that they're giving you with their eyes open, it captures your soul and transports you into this new world. Kind of just it takes you and these people kind of gather. Like I think it's like 3 or 4 people I've put
Well,
together,
so
and
stop me if I'm wrong. So you kill somebody with the magic.
so somebody's been killed by this dark magic, not
Okay,
by
somebody has
me.
been killed by the dark magic. Some other character comes along, peers into their eyes, they can get transported to a secondary world.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, so this world that they get transported into is very, very dark. Monsters, apparitions, and they find this way to escape, but they find this higher calling to eradicate this world, and that's where I'm at.
Okay, so my first question would be: so the secondary person that comes along, do they have a power that is related to the original magic?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's very, very in the beginning stages, but it came to me last night, and now it's like their the darkest gaze, or like something along those lines. Like that will be a part of the book that I write. I find so much inspiration. I will very much elaborate on that further in time. I just kind of
I can definitely see something coming of this. That the key thing will be tying this world back into how it is impacting reality. Because there has to be some sort of tension, some sort of stakes that if this person wants to get rid of this world, why do they want to get rid of this world? Or did they know when they looked into this person's eyes that this was going to happen to them? Was there anybody that had written or talked about this other world prior to this person's experience?
Ooh, I love that.
I could see them being like you could do like a medic that's in the middle of a war and there's magic being used in this war, and he finds somebody that's been killed by this, peers into their eyes, gets transported there, and he's the first one. Or maybe like an aid worker that's back in sort of like a medical tent, or like it could have been like even a religious acolyte or somebody that got deployed to this, didn't want to be there, and they stumble across this. There's a whole lot of cool stuff that you can do with it.
There's questions that I such as what you said. There has to be a history of this, and there has to be a way out of this that I have to think about, because you're right.
The next step, like depending on how historical you want to make this, you could do. I was saying you could do this like with Nazi Germany. That maybe there's a Nazi scientist on the other side that is trying to exploit the power of the secondary world, that understands it as well or better than the protagonist. And so, yeah, you can do secondary world, or you can do historical fantasy and do cool dark stuff with it.
I love that, dude. I love both dark fantasy and historical fantasy. So I told my wife earlier, because she is very much looking. She likes how I write, and when I write something and then I lose like this drive to continue, and that's because the idea kind of just falls flat for me. This is different. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and you've given me some inspiration. Thank you.
Oh no,
Chris,
I'm happy to workshop around. Happy to help any way I can.
I'm sure that I'll be messaging you quite a few times, but so thank you.
And as I'm sure other authors will tell you, you will have lots of great ideas during the course of your writing career. The key is determining which of those are just ideas and which of those can be combined with other ideas. Because you don't want to keep having new ones and neglecting the ones you've already had. You want to find a way to synthesize them together and start making them into something greater. Because once you do that, you get beyond the first 20, 30 pages of the novel. You start to get it. If you can get past, this was really cool and I just want to write something about it, to I am now in the middle of the book and I'm having to work in that the hard slog that everyone talks about. That's when you truly have an idea or something that's going to be great.
Thank you for that a bit of experience that I knew that you would be able to give me. Appreciate that so much, man. I really do. Who are a couple people you'd like to see me interview in the future?
Like I said, Allegra Pescatore, she's doing really cool stuff with like Gaslamp Fantasy and an intercombined universe of 10 worlds that involves a lot of co-authors, which is something that's really cool in indie fantasy. There, like Andy Peliquin recently teamed up with Jamie Castle.
Yep.
You don't hear a lot of co-author teams in indie fantasy or even in trad fantasy. So that'd be a great group to talk to. Have you already talked to Zamil Akhtar?
Yep.
Okay, he probably has my favorite historical / grimdark fantasy that I've read in indie books.
Gunmetal Gods.
Yes, I think. Did you already do Ryan Cahill?
Yeah.
Okay. JDL Russel.
It's funny you say that. He was on. He's sick right now, so he was going to be on tomorrow. But so in the future, yes, I will be talking with him. Those are great. Those are great.
I'm trying to think of who else in my direct circle. Oh, have you done Rachel Renner? Or Rachel Coleman?
Rachel Renner. That's a new one.
So she is another admin of Indie Fantasy Addicts, along with myself and Andy. and
Ooh.
she has the most unique magic system in her breakout series, which is Gilded Blood. It is
Gilded
the
Blood.
story of a Jewish tattoo artist that is tattooing a butt cobra onto one of her clients' butts, and she runs out of ink. So she goes to the ink closet in her boss's office, the ink closet he told her never to touch, never to use, pulls out some ink, and it turns out to be magic ink. The butt cobra comes to life, and she gets whisked off on this crazy adventure into her boss, who happens to be an incubus, into the Fey realm through his interdimensional filing cabinet that she
Oh
found the ink
my
in. Yeah.
God.
Oh, there you go.
I
Knock switch life, paranormal romance.
so I have a
But
book
it
on.
is epic paranormal romance. It's like epic fantasy
Ooh.
with romance.
I have a grimdark romance on the way that I can't wait to get to, and I'm not a romance reader. Crystal Matar.
Yes, she's great too.
I cannot wait to talk with her. I can't wait to get that book in the mail. I am very excited about it.
Oh, speaking of grimdark, since you said you like grimdark, oh, why can't I remember his name? Price of Power.
Oh yeah, Michael Michelle.
There you go.
So I've talked to him before, but he's gonna be on. We're working something out right now.
Okay.
He's gonna be on again. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I can't wait. In fact, I believe he has the longest running interview on my channel so far. maybe second longest. I forget who beat him. But no, I love his work. I've only read his novella. What is it?
Oh, the cover, I see it in my head. It's like
It's
the
red.
Ouroboros snake that's behind the chained man.
Yeah. I can't think of the name of it, but it's great.
Yeah.
Those are wonderful. I love when I hear people that I've had on, because it's like, okay, I'm doing this thing halfway right. And then it's like when I hear people that I can't wait to talk to, it just makes it more exciting. So thank you for that, man. So guys, just a little backstory. This interview has been planned for so we were supposed to talk like a month ago. And
yes, it was end of October.
Yeah, things came up and we're here now. But yeah, I just have had so much fun, Chris. You're somebody who I will keep in touch with, just not only as somebody who likes what you write, but as somebody who's had the experience that I want to one day have. So I really appreciate you taking some time tonight and spending some time on my channel, man.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back once you do book 2, and then we can talk about before and after, and like perceptions, and whether it was 5 times better or only 4.5.
No, that would be amazing. Thank you for saying. I love little tidbits like that. Something that you're looking forward to as well, because I find myself looking forward to things that I may perceive that authors aren't looking forward to. So for that backup, I really appreciate it, because look, I was telling him before we started, and a long time ago I told him this. I found Christopher Russell on Andrew Wizardly Reads. I was just in like the stage of binging like Booktube, and I got to see his interview with Andrew Wizardly Reads, and I knew that he was somebody that I wanted to talk to, and it was everything that I could have wished for, and
if
I
I
hope to
remember
continue.
correctly, that was like 3 or 4 months ago that I did that.
Yeah,
interview,
it was like 5 months ago, 6 months ago almost.
You have your full setup. You are this professional in the interviewing process, and it has only been 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
So yeah, everybody just take a look at what Matt is doing. He is an amazing booktuber.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, man. Seriously, I appreciate that. That means the world to me, dude. Seriously. I don't sometimes I don't know what to say, and this is one of those moments. So I appreciate you saying that. I've had so much fun. I appreciate everybody who came in and watched this live. I appreciate everybody who watch it in the future. Pick up Rebirth. I know that one for sure is outstanding, and from what I hear, Remnant is like I said, or like Christopher said, 5 times better. And that's not just him saying that. I've heard that throughout Booktube. So I'm very excited to get to it. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, viewers, and thanks for those in the future. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, morning, wherever you're coming from. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Go check out my books and all the other great indie books that are on sale today. You're going to be able to find something for Black Friday.
Amazing. Yes, there's so many books. So go check those out, guys, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Matt.